In the midst of the war of the 10,000 races, demons descended to Earth, turning the world into a battlefield of thousands of races. In the early stages of the war, although humanity had a number of individuals with powers, it fell at a disadvantage thanks to the numbers, relying on firearms and nuclear equipment. First years, humanity barely managed to build 10 lines of defense to resist the 10,000 clans. After a decade, 2 of humanity's lines of defense have been destroyed, and humanity's defeat has become increasingly real. And in this scenario, humanity had no choice but to fight for its life against the 10,000 clans. Since the war began, humanity's Eastern Alliance has suffered millions of casualties. Now, as firearms ran out and the number of awakened rose, nations began to depend on them for help on the battlefield. To reclaim the homeland and survive, humanity continued to expand its scale. Therefore, in the 10-year War of the 10,000 Races, the large-scale enlistment of the Hua country began. In the north of the border, in the industrial city of the Eastern Alliance, a tribute says, about 19-year-old Chen Guohai, who fell into the 10th line of defense with a level 2 electricity skill, and dozens more people are honored, like Su Li, 22 years old, who perished in the 9th line of defense and had a level 3 fire skill. Behind the presenter, there was a list of everyone who fell from the defense line in the last month. That was the biggest veteran, who says that the fallen were his friends, his family, brothers and sisters. Therefore, they were the heroes of Yi City and Hua country. A few months ago, the 9th line of defense lost. If the war continues to break its defenses, Yi City will bear the brunt, with no escape possible, but is now preparing to receive millions awakened for the counterattack. The veteran questions what the young generation would do, and the public responds in screams that would protect their homeland, their mountains and rivers, repeatedly screaming to enlist. So they go to the enlistment office and tell them that their desire was to go against the enemy's defense lines. They would defeat the alien races and cut them into pieces. People hold up their IDs and shout that they want to enlist because they would go to the front lines to fight. People start enlisting until they reach Nan Ziying. The veteran explains that Ziying was 20 years old, had no supernatural talent, and was studying architecture, then asks if he would like to enlist. Ziying denies the opportunity to go to the front line, surprising forces veteran. The boy says that he preferred to stay behind in the logistics part. Everyone who was enlisting asked if he really wouldn't go to the front line, as the logistics were for women, children, and the elderly. And the senior yells that Ziying was in good health and had high grades, and the front line needed people, and wonders if he has forgotten what they did to humanity. Ziying says she hasn't forgotten, but has already made her choice. The audience screams again about Ziying saving his classmates during a horde of mutant beasts. But now that the nation is in need, it would stand behind. However, the older veteran orders those present to calm down. He says that enlistment was not mandatory and was about personal will and a sense of responsibility. Therefore, Ziying could fall behind, but with such high grades, it would be a waste. The veteran asks the boy to take his form and leave. As Ziying passes by, everyone calls him a coward, and when the borders break, he wouldn't stay alive for long, ordering the boy never to appear there again. The next day, some helicopters arrive flying over the place. Soldiers sing guerrilla poems as they march to the borders, screaming that victory was theirs at that moment, and protecting his home and nation was his greatest honor. Ziying watches this scene from an alley and notices her cell phone vibrating in her pocket. So he pulls it out to see what he had been warned about, noticing 3 new news about Ziying City. And the second most viewed news was about the city's super rookie Yi refusing military service. On the internet, a person called Polonius comments that they didn't know why Ziying stayed behind as support, but it would be a wrong choice. User ATR responds that the logistics department was doing well and didn't need young people, but staying behind, running away from responsibilities, was a generational thing. Mian says that the external alliance was promising to recover the alliances in 10 years, and he believed in the youth because in the East, they were not inferior to anyone. Calling him a coward for running away from the borders, leaving his friends with this burden. All the comments make Ziying apprehensive as he looks at his cell phone, saying that they were being and everyone was a hero. But in battle, they were like moths flying towards the flame. as an assembly of 1,000,000 troops underestimated the power of the alien races, and in his past life, he joined the army early and went to the borders to fight with the enemy. He eventually joined the war command and became an accomplished strategist. While humanity was forced to retreat step by step, he dedicated his life to studying the 5 greatest talents and discovered 5 types of talent trees in themselves. But unexpectedly, before completing the maximum level of their talents, humanity was defeated, and he was sent to the beyond by the hand of one of the strongest of the 10,000 races. However, Ziying did not accept this, and it is said that if he had improved his talents earlier, it would have been different. After all, he needed to protect humanity, but thanks to his obsession or destiny, he was reborn, and the talent trees he put into himself came back with him completely. He had the talent of taming beasts, the elemental talent that allowed him to control forbidden elemental spells, the Asura talent tree that increased his amplification strength each time he took a life until he reached the final focus, where he transformed into an Asura. Then he also had the formation tree that allowed him to master various formations without limiting his capabilities. And finally, the undead talent that allowed him to summon zombies. Therefore, improving these 5 talents required a lot of time and source stones. If he can improve these 5 talents to the maximum and strategize over 1,000 miles, he could withstand the 10,000 races and protect humanity even alone. But now, if he went to the battlefield, he wouldn't be able to defeat many aliens or get source stones to improve his talents, so he was taking a risk. The best way to obtain resources quickly was to go to logistics, full of mutant beasts, ideal for improving talents. Ziying arrives at Yi City's back trial grounds. He says that he needed to hurry to acquire source stones to improve his talents. Some people say that no one expected that talents trained during the first year of the war would end up there. But no one came to the field to train, because dealing with all the mutant beasts and turning them into rations for the soldiers was perfect, as they still contribute to the nation. But a girl tells Wang not to get hurt. Wang tells Xiao Liu that he was just avoiding damaging supplies and would finish it in a month, while his colleague regretted dealing with the beasts without swords. Regretting Xiao Liu not being able to help thanks to his leg injury, Ziying arrives and says he was there to train at the testing ground, because he could help deal with some mutant beasts. Xiao Liu says it would be incredible because they were worried about it, and she would show him the changing area. Wang wonders why a young boy went to the training camp in a time like this, but he soon recognized who the boy was. The woman takes her cell phone from her back pocket while saying that she remembered now, for he was Nan Ziying, who refused to go to the borders and was in the news. The colleague asks why he was going to the training camp while he fled the borders, and Wang says he was a coward who was trying to alleviate the guilt of living behind everyone. And her colleague agrees with that. Ziying passes his sword across the ground, generating metallic sparks. Xiao Liu says that it was the sword used to defeat mutants, and they were fierce, so Ziying should be careful. The boy raises his sword and says he understands this, thanking the girl. And the girl thinks they could increase the progress a little now. Furthermore, Ziying didn't talk much, but was a bit handsome. But Wang approaches and tells Xiao Liu to stop dreaming, because no matter how handsome, he was still a coward named Nan Ziying, whom the girl recognizes. The woman asks what strength a coward would have to fight mutant beasts, and he would probably start crying and leave sooner than expected. Ziying finally enters the room. A message explains that he has selected level A testing, and he had no memories of past tests, so he had to confirm the level. Ziying confirms and orders the test to begin. So lights start to appear in the room, and he says that the A-level test has started, and he should get ready. When the long night comes, and humanity has nowhere to return, wondering if for the future of humanity, Ziying was willing to become the shadow in the night, even if it means facing thousands of curses. Ziying takes a deep breath as she sees the beasts approaching. But open your eyes, fully focused, and he says yes, he was willing, ordering the beasts to come to him as he would start with the talent of taming beasts. Ziying says that after the invasion of the 10,000 races, many animals evolved or mutated thanks to spiritual energy. In his past life, he faced the 10,000 races and mutant beasts, such as the umbrella bird, famous for muscle memory. Then he jumps with his sword while saying that the umbrella bird's weak point, it was right behind the head. Cutting it in half, Ziying lands on the ground, and orders the source stone to be extracted, proving talent was the same as in his past life, where it required defeating beasts like the umbrella bird, gaining source stones, and being able to tame more mutants. Ziying moves his hand and says that he could withstand injuries of this extent, and if you can dodge all attacks that hit vital points, dealing with them all quickly wouldn't be a problem. The bird screams unless it is cut. Ziying runs around cutting down all the beasts in front of him without caring about anything. But one of the birds tries to bite his right hand. The boy places his left palm on the floor and kicks the beast away. The others try to advance against Ziying, who only thinks about eliminating distractions first. Cutting off each of the birds on the head with extreme dexterity, the efficiency increases by 5 when he tames 5 beasts, just as Ziying had thought. The boy looks back quickly, noticing a giant bird in the middle of everyone. That was their leader, the umbrella bird emperor. Thanks to Ziying's physical condition, it would be difficult to defeat him. He dodges a beak strike, noting he couldn't deal with him head to head, turning around and moving your sword with the intention of attacking the weak points. But the bird defends the cut with its carapace. Ziying thinks that durability had been improved compared to what he remembers from his past life. So he places his feet on the ground, preparing himself and jumping quickly, aiming to attack the bird again without giving it time to rest. Wang and her colleague Li watch the training test during their lunch break. Xiaolu approaches and asks why they weren't going to the coffee shop, but Wang says that they would see how long Ziying would keep acting. Li adds that he would leave soon, as the border was forced back in the 8th defense, and as Yi City was the 5th, being very close to the border. Wang says he wouldn't allow the boy to cause trouble there, and if he runs, they will defeat the boy. Xiaolu tells the two that an A-level test was no simpler than the border. However, the conversation is interrupted by an announcement, saying that participant Nan Ziying has completed the first floor of the A-level test. Wang asks if they heard that, because no one had finished this test, and Ziying must have abandoned it because he couldn't handle it. And Li agrees until he notices something. The woman slams her face into someone's chest, surprising herself by it, and falling to the ground, scared right away. Ziying passed the A-level test with a kill count of 2,000, and being the new record of the first tower test, Wang questions why he was looking like that. And if he had passed A-level, Ziying agrees that he passed, and the demons' bodies could start being processed. Now Xiaolu turns around and says that now they should start processing, while Wang complains that it was too much meat. In the bath, Ziying reflects that the speed of progress was barely adequate, and the experience needed to evolve was more than double. He was at level 2 of the mutant beast taming talent, with 2,000 beasts tamed. While you think that reaching level 3 just on the 3rd floor won't be enough. A bell rings, warning that it was the war report, and their next offensive round was about to begin. Ziying thinks that the level 7 skill holder, Punishment Thunder Sun, and the level 6 skill holder, Fire Giant, have arrived at the border, and in their past life, they would be defeated and perish after entering the battlefield, bringing tragic defeats. And it wouldn't take long for the 8th defense to collapse. So he should increase the speed of his preparations, as this was a race against time and he had no time to rest. So he should go to the 2nd floor. Wang says he didn't expect the boy to pass the test, and Li responds that with the wounds he had, he would need a long rest. Wang says that trying to achieve it all at once was not practical, so it was better for him to proceed step by step. Li responds that with his injuries, he would rest for a few days, and Wang responds that he would report himself as disabled and never return. However, the girl notices Nan Ziying approaching with the sword. She says he was back and they should keep the conversation low, and Wang asks, what did it matter? Telling Ziying that he finished work on the 1st floor while asking what he wanted. The boy replies that he would go to the 2nd floor. Wang is surprised that the boy went to the 2nd floor. Zhao Lu warns about giant beasts on the 2nd floor and suggests waiting for help, while a man compares the tiger ox to a tank. Ziying thanks everyone, but prefers to do it alone. Wang shouts that if he was really capable, he should go to the front line, and asked what was the point of showing it there. Xiaolu looks at the scene apprehensively, as he thinks that it was strange coming from someone like Mr. Nan, for he looked like the type who was afraid for his life, hiding in the rear. The system notifies that Ziying had started the 2nd floor test, and the boy stands in front of hundreds of ox tigers, showing his aura. He soon notices that the second floor was different from the first, because the pressure was much greater as he advances with his sword. He tries to cut the beasts, but they dodge the blow. Then one of them appears behind Ziying, hitting the boy with his horns and sending him away. Thanks to the impact, Ziying stops on the floor trying to get up, reflecting that he had no advantage in size or strength and could not fight head-on, especially injured as he was. The oxen take a deep breath as they salivate with hunger, thanks to the boy. Ziying says they were making fun of him, but he wasn't the type to move forward without a plan, standing in front of the beasts while waiting for them. An aura surrounds your right eye. Then one of the oxen tries to attack him with a horn attack. Ziying, however, jumps above him, plunging your sword into the beast's head, then move it to the left, causing the beast to pour a lot of blood from its wound. The other beasts stare at the boy as he does this. Ziying says that since level 2 beasts can be tamed, he should tame them before dealing with them, activating the beast taming talent, which spreads an energy that repels all beasts in the room, making people scream thanks to the pressure and forcing everyone to fall, breaking the ground on the way. Ziying warns that this should keep them in line. He faces the beast with his sword and says it was time for him to continue evolving and reach level 3 at once. 3 days later, at Ye City's back trial ground, Li asks for help in dealing with the beasts Ziying was sitting, while the employees ordered the meat to be moved quickly, as there was no more space there and there was already enough for today. The boy was already at Beast Tamer level 6, being able to tame level 6 beasts, while thinking that in just 3 days, more than 10,000 beasts were defeated, and it was much more efficient than the front line. And now he could go to the desert at night, a place where a level 5 skill holder cannot escape. And thanks to the threats of Esper and firearms, the beasts do not attack cities. But taming them was the key to his strategy against the 10,000 races. An elderly man calls Ziying and asks if they should work overtime to move another batch as they want to send more supplements to the front line. But Ziying denies it, saying that he needed to leave early today, and you agree with him. Wang comments that it has only been a few days, and he has already given up on that. And a man complains that despite falling behind, the tower has progressed thanks to Ziying, but the lady says he was just getting into trouble with her. The man responds that she was the problem there and was always talking behind Ziying's back instead of working, and the boy walks away. Xiao Liu calls him and says they managed to catch up on the test tower delay, and he should probably take a break from working so hard. Ziying thanks her and says he should go now, so the girl tells him to rest because she wouldn't hold him anymore. Outside the border, a soldier orders them to follow the path and not block the road, for they picked up the wounded from the front line and needed urgent medical attention. While driving down the street, Ziying comments that the flow of wounded in the 5th Defense suggested the situation on the front line. But the civilians point upwards, talking about the rockets that flew over the sky, because it seemed like they had the upper hand. But it wasn't about gaining the advantage, as the situation was critical and needed a lot of support. While Ziying thinks that the day the defense would collapse was near, he puts a mask on your face and his sword at his waist, walking through the snow while reflecting that this was no time to waste time. In frozen mountains, a soldier asks why the truck stopped, as it was quite dangerous this time. And when he goes out to check, he sees that the truck has broken down, and he should see what was wrong, because after all, the pile has decided to fail them now. A blonde woman says they would leave the truck there and come back in the morning, because with the mutant wolves in the neighborhood, safety was the priority, and the soldier agrees with her. But he notices a mysterious figure falling outside. Ziying moves in the opposite direction to the truck. The blonde woman asks who he was, as he was going to City A at that time of night, then shouted him to be careful because there were giant mutant wolves in front, and they were very dangerous. A girl says that the director called as the city had injured people waiting for medicine, but the blonde responds that driving now was risky, and they couldn't leave the man alone. Her friend responds that it was a nest of giant mutant wolves, and if they attacked, the herb collection team wouldn't be able to defend themselves, so they can't worry about others. The blonde leaves the conversation aside and puts her hands on the steering wheel, saying that they should go, but both are surprised by what happens in front of them. Hearing a bloodied team member lying on the ground while calling for help, the blonde sees the presence of a mutant wolf in the rearview mirror, and her friend orders her to drive the car because there was a giant iron wolf behind them. But the wolf attacks the car windshield, and the girl prepares the gun and tells the blonde to hurry up and drive. So, afraid, she orders to open fire on the wolf. From afar, Ziying notices the sound of gunshots and reflects that it was coming from the direction of the herb collection team. But he was surrounded by wolves, while he thinks they were not just attacking there, but ambushing him there. However, this was to Ziying's advantage, saving him from trouble. After all, the greater the concentrated spiritual energy, the more intelligent the beasts would be. The truck's windows were punched out thanks to the gunshots, but the wolf had ducked to avoid the bullets. The girl with the gun tells Xiaonan to be careful. Xiaonan responds that she was fine, and her friend comments that if they defeat or drive away the wolves, Nan should drive to the city. The blonde just agrees with the orders imposed. While holding the steering wheel, Ziying was splitting all the wolves with his sword. But he notices a strange presence and turns around, asking if it was the Wolf King by his side, because it seemed that if he can deal with this pack, the medical team could be saved. And so the Wolf King approaches him, his metallic mask putting fear in the place. Ziying says that since the boss appeared, their battle should begin, so a flash comes on in the place. An aura surrounds Ziying, suddenly scaring away everything around him. That was his talent for taming beasts. The boy nods his head while looking at the Wolf King, releasing the immense aura against all the beasts that were there. Tentacles emerged from the ground to hit the wolves, holding them back to stop them from fighting. The Wolf King notices something strange about the attack and then howl at your subordinates, calling more and more wolves to face the Ziying tree. The wolves release a red aura against the boy, but he continues releasing his energy, thus facing the Wolf King and his subjects. Ziying says he would shoot the horse before the runner and capture the king to apprehend his bandits. The wolves look at the sky, shocked by what they were seeing, for an immense bluish aura emerges from the ground, lifting Ziying. Ziying jumps from this aura tree branch as a few wolves are thrown away. He prepares an attack with his red hand, as his priority was to tame the leader. The wolf howls again in denial, its red eyes glowing brighter and brighter. But Ziying touches his hand to the Iron Wolf King's head, freeing your soul while commanding it to be tamed. Ziying's aura begins to combat that of the Wolf King, who begins to lose his consciousness thanks to the battle. All the wolves bow their heads at what they saw, because there was a gigantic tree of pure aura being branched in that place. The girl keeps shooting at the wolves and tells Xiaonan to hurry up and drive, while the girl puts her foot on the accelerator and says they were going to leave. However, a silence takes over the place. Xiaonan asks why his truck wasn't starting, and your friend gets scared, saying that they had broken up. The wolves keep riding the back of the truck, causing an impact that pushes the girls forward and breaks the car window. So the wolf that was on the windshield gets ready to bite both of them, with two other wolves that were in the driver and passenger window. But the girl with the gun asks what was going on there. What if she was seeing things? Because the wolves seemed to be being cute. The wolf turns around quickly, leaving with the others toward Ziying Mountain. The girls look out the window, still processing what had happened, and the three wolves gather with the others, lowering their heads before the event. For Ziying stood above a rock, surrounded by the submissive wolves. Xiaonan wonders if all these giant wolves had really been tamed, and her friend comments that a single person tamed hundreds of wolves must have been someone of high level, because it was very incredible. Ziying had reached level 7 of the beast taming talent, and said that the source stones were dangerous for now, and there was no need to spend time taming them. I didn't expect to have a pet so soon. He strokes the Wolf King's fur and says that all the wolves seemed well behaved, and should disperse for now, as he will summon them when he needs to, telling the Wolf King to remember not to attack other humans, because there were many uninhabited areas near Yi City, and he must subdue all the mutant beasts in those areas. After all, for his grand battle plan, he needs to find a way to assemble an army of 10 million mutant beasts. And thanks to his action, the herb collection team now had a safe path. However, he receives a message from the factory and asks about it. The message says that they would have an emergency meeting in the test lands, and he should go, but Ziying just wonders what could have happened. An old man shouts that everyone from the Yi City branch was disappointing, as they have made rapid progress in relieving further pressure from the front line, but only they fought with very high-level mutant beasts. The veteran says that it was the first time that Yi City encountered beasts of level 4 or higher, and fighting with beasts needed a lot of time. However, the officer just repeats about time, asking if he knew the gravity of the situation as the front-line troops were close to starvation and the stock of mutant beasts was dwindling. So to feed the front-line military, they needed high-level beasts. The veteran says he understands and would send more people from Yes City to continue this difficult mission. However, the officer says that it was not necessary because he watched the entire Ye City for half a day and there was no one available, so he would delay the military supplements. Xiao Liu argues that level 4 mutants were too many for Ye City, but the official says progress was slow because of the defector, and the city really lived irresponsibly as they could not hold any responsibility. Wang shouts that she was fed up with the officer and asks if he had anything special, as her husband and 3 children lost their lives on the front line across the country. Crying, she continues saying that she works 24 hours a day just to maintain this supply routine, so he could not devalue her efforts. The officer disdains her, as one of the soldiers prepares her skill and asks how she can disrespect an officer, while Wang wanted to know what he would do. The soldier prepares to punch Wang with his strength, but Ziying appears and quickly strikes his chin. The soldier falls unconscious, while the officer was in a cold sweat. Nan Ziying stops in front of the officer and says that they should not replace violence with argument Li, and the members of the station shout that little Nan was finally there. The veteran turns to Ziying, wondering what he was doing there, as he took down a level 5 skill wielder in one move. However, the officer questions who he was, pulling out a gun and saying that Ziying had stressed him out for disrespecting his superior and asking if Yes City was planning a riot. The boy says that that was the officer, the traitor who made a fortune from the war and was identified and given a global execution after 20 years in the War of 1,000 Races. Lin Yukai, the supplements leech. In his past life, he got many military supplies across the border, causing significant losses by the time he was discovered. He targeted Yes City's processing speed to defeat higher-level monsters, improving his pockets in the process, which wasn't a surprise coming from Lin Yukai's. He needed to deal with him, because before doing so, he needed to drain all his resources. So he told the officer that there were no rebels causing a disturbance there. The workers ask what was the point of pointing a gun at them, as they have sacrificed enough on the battlefield of the 10,000 races. Everyone tells their situations, and Yukai thinks it wasn't ending well because he thought everyone was old and weak. But they seem to still have something, and wonder why the boy looked familiar, noting that he is the defector from the news, Nan Ziying, and was hiding like a coward there, as he refused the draft and attacked a soldier, would have an execution. Ziying says that he doesn't care about this because he is the one who processed tens of thousands of beasts, and if he loses his life, progress would slow down. So he stares at the soldier. Both the veteran and Yukai are impressed that Ziying is the ace of the test tower. The boy explains that high-level beasts can affect the human mind with energy, and if Yukai wants to send him to the afterlife, he can't do anything. So the officer thinks that the deserter had turned the tables on him, as he knew a lot about the beasts. And from everyone's reaction, he didn't lie, so he shouldn't go that way. But since he was willing to accept this, everything was perfect for Yukai. Yukai agrees, saying that he would send 5,000 level 4 beasts, and if he defeated one, he would let it pass. But if it fails, they have settled all accounts, old or new, and Ziying accepts. The employees ask him about the military promise, and Xiao Liu asks if he would do it alone, as she can help. But Ziying tells them not to worry, while thinking that among the 4th level beasts, this kind of beast was stronger than everyone, with high defense and mental breaking, but not just for the supplies. But materials were precious, and Lin Yukai would do anything for money. But thanks to him, these demons were the perfect material. Therefore, first he would defeat all the beasts and improve his Asura talent, and then he would finish off Lin Yukai and all his contacts at once. The other day, a soldier arrives at the logistics area and says that the 5,000 4th level crossbows have been delivered, and a man next to him says that he would check on Yes City. Yao Liu talks to the officers while the old man takes out a notepad. He says that he would read a military order where Yes City's logistics division soldier, Nan Ziying, was in charge of processing 5,000 4th level beasts, therefore must complete the task within a week and within the time regulations. Nan Ziying was subject to Yukai's authority. He was being accused of insubordination, inciting a workers' rebellion, and attacking an officer, where any offense would match the changes. Therefore, he would be executed immediately by the fire squad. And the old man holds a gun in his hand to mock Ziying. Like everyone questions the old man's decision to call the fire squad, but he asks if he didn't agree so easily when they made the military order yesterday, and if they were scared, for when the time comes, it would be his responsibility to personally execute Ziying. Therefore, he would enjoy this process a little, so he tries to touch the boy's shoulder to deliver a letter. Ziying takes the letter and says that these were all words coming from a mere messenger. The soldier calls him an arrogant brat, but the messenger says that they were forgetting the manners close to losing their lives and were going to start testing the boy. Xiao Liu warns that for high-level crossbows, anesthetic smoke was needed, but the component was at the borders, so Ziying should be careful, and he agrees. As the three leave, the remnants ask if the mutant beasts attack mentally, as Ziying seems confident as a psychic. The messenger tested his psychic powers on the child, but there was no reaction, so he had to wait for Nan Ziying's execution, for he would probably be driven insane by them and unable to think thanks to the approaching defeat. So the messenger smiles evilly. Then he says that now that he comes to think of it, his boss wards would end with him, so ask the guard if he knew how to report to the boss since he was sent to do so. The guard responds that he should be sure that whatever happens there, he will truly report it. At the same time, Ziying says that the fourth-level mutant beasts were as expected as they were physically immobile, but their mental power was formidable. He looks at his eyes in the darkness, turning to the left and surprising himself, for the image formed a skull, where Ziying says they could invoke lived illusions. The skull moves forward to attack the boy, becoming flesh and blood as he steps forward to hold Ziying in his hand, surprising the boy and pressuring him. But Ziying's sword pierces a creature's head. The boy runs and hits him in the head, saying they were mere illusions. Therefore, they could not control him mentally and were nothing more than targets for him to hit, as he needs more evil aura to improve the Asura talent. So it would be better for the creatures to bring their best skills. But Ziying is surprised when he looks down because his foot was being consumed by a dark energy. And the boy says that it was something like this that he wanted. The energy traps the boy as a creature approaches. She says that Ziying was very tired and could live much easier. After all, the boy has already paid the price and should think for those who have left. Remembering his father protecting humanity was a joke. And Ziying saw his future, so the creature speaks of the worst. But the boy holds back his aura and suggests a break. Ziying pulls the aura from his head and says that his revenge against the 10,000 races would happen and the fate of humanity would be theirs to choose. The boy gets around with his tree and the creatures ask him how he resisted it and if he would end up a bad man consumed by it. Ziying says that when you activate the Asura talent and enter the Asura form, your strength and mental power increase exponentially. And evil energy was the way to improve. He moves his hand, and the tree begins to move against the evil energy to consume it. The tree consumes the energy and begins to consume Ziying's body, breaking his mask, making the boy scream in pain as he absorbed the power inside his house. The officer complains about being pressured and spending a lot of money to keep his party under his control. These have improved, but even without reaching level 6, his first Asura talent ability has arrived, for he could venture deeper to tame beasts and speed up his plan. Wang says that fellow Xiao Nan had helped a lot because otherwise they would have been looked down upon, and Li agrees with her, for it was clear that they could not handle it themselves and used them and acted as high and mighty against the weak. Ziying reflects that he has forgotten about these people, and they must not be happy about him completing the task, since increasing his Asura talent has improved his perception. So the messenger thinks that Ziying was a skill bringer, and after cutting off his income stream, no one had the audacity to insult, but he should invest the boy. The soldier touches the messenger on the shoulder, saying that Ziying completed the tasks, and that the man was now acting against the boss. And if anything suspicious is seen, they must wait for the boss to finish using it, as there was a lot of mental power residue there, so he would interfere if he acted without thinking. The messenger shouts at him to stop talking nonsense, as he would report to the boss personally when the time comes, releasing a dark aura against Ziying. The boy thinks it was a psychic aura trick. wondering if it could be an attack on his mind, but he miscalculated. Ziying reflects the aura back and says it was the perfect time to test her Asura talent. Then the messenger is surprised. Finding himself in an empty space, he says that he should have invaded Ziying's mental system, but he didn't know where he was. He thinks that after hacking into a mental system, he should see entities, but he couldn't see anything in the darkness he had. Until he is called by someone, being surprised. The presence was coming from behind and was starting to materialize. The messenger notes that it was a mental entity condensed into evil energy, as the face forms a demon. He shouts, asking what skill level the boy possessed, as he clearly investigated before. In the end, he wanted to know who the hell Ziying was, but a dark aura begins to take over your feet, and the face says that it didn't matter who he was, because the messenger was the only one trying to invade his mental world. The messenger is attacked by evil energy and asks to be spared, but the voice asks to give him a big show, while the messenger is overcome by the energy in his head. The aura ends and attacks him, and the messenger shouts that everything belonged to him and he didn't care what they would say. He runs around the soldier and says that Lin Yukai was an idiot and he would take care of everything himself. The maids wonder if this was the pressure of becoming a leader, as he seemed quite irresponsible. The soldier says that he may have been affected by the mental power residue, and the messenger continues shouting that anyone who touches his money would lose their life. So the soldier snaps his fingers and tells him to keep tarnishing his boss's reputation, landing a punch that destroys the man's head, surprising all the maids who were watching the scene. The man apologizes because he was being influenced by the monster's power and he had to execute him. Walking towards Ziying while thinking he fainted and looking mentally disturbed, but he didn't want to take the idiot's life. After all, this child had no more uses. However, he should report to his boss first. He goes around telling everyone to keep up the good work and hold things together. Then Ziying smiles lightly as the guard leaves because he had reached level 6 of the Asura talent. After a while, Ziying opens his eyes, surrounded by the maids. Xiao Liu says that the boy was finally awake, and Li calls all the employees to see him. The boy sits on the bed and asks how long he passed out. Liu tells him that he slept for 2 days. Wang adds that he didn't need to worry anymore, as everyone should get back to work or they would never finish. Li tells Ziying to get up and eat something. Ziying asks if they sent more crossbows, and Wang replies no, because half of the group was sent to help other factories, and the military needed twice as many. Since the battle in the 9th line of defense was over and they were pushed to the 8th, completely defeated, the situation was horrible, because both in heaven and on land, the soldiers had no chance against the monsters of the 10,000 races. And even the ability wielder called the Son of Thunder of Punishment barely survived without an arm, and the fire giant made a sacrifice for the country. Ziying reflects that defeat was inevitable, but never thought the collapse would come sooner than in his past life. Wang tells him that the officers went on a special mission 2 days ago and said that the officer lost his life thanks to the manipulation of the monster, and the city of Ye was inoperative. So compared to what you mentioned, what came next would be the most crucial, and Ziying asks what it was. She calls Xiao Liu, who approaches Nan Ziying, counting that he was unanimously elected as the leader of Ye City's testing tower. And those were the initial notes coming from superiors. Wang says it was everyone's recognition for Nan because everyone had offended him a lot in the past, but everyone should call him Boss Nan now. Xiao Liu calls him that, and the employees say they would do their best. The girl adds that the leader's tasks were heavier than before, and the group was half full and needed double military supplements. She asks how half of them would stay on their feet after a month without eating, drinking, or sleeping, wanting to know what Ziying would do with work, because the work efficiency wouldn't change much, and that was her maximum for now. Ziying just reflects that with 2 skills, the efficiency can be doubled, and this way, with regular breaks, new tasks wouldn't affect them, because with this position, draining Yukai's resources would be easier. Xiao Liu turns around and says the task was impossible and pointless, so they would appeal to the leadership. But Ziying says he understood everything. Everyone was surprised by this. The girl says she knew the immense pressure since he won this role, but Ziying wasn't recovered and couldn't act without thinking like before. Ziying puts her foot down and says he knew about everyone's concern for health, but they could finish this task, and the employees agree with him. shouting that they followed his lead until a silhouette passes by. Ziying thinks that that speed wasn't from someone in his group and steps outside wondering who it was. He runs outside, finding himself in a place with several trucks. A girl points a gun at the back of Ziying's head and says that it was daring to run after her, and the boy had some courage because from now on, he shouldn't move, as she would ask, and he would answer. Ziying just wonders if she was a true expert. The woman asks how many monsters were in the next batch of Yukai, and if they were delivering or picking up. The boy tells her that it would be better to ask Yukai and his gang about this. So the woman asks why, if he was not cooperating, but should answer her question seriously. Ziying imbues her hand with evil energy and says the girl got distracted and it was her chance. Turning around while using the Asura talent, he forces the girl to move to the side to avoid his palm. But the woman shoots her in the hand. Ziying questions who said he was Yukai's accomplice because she had the wrong guy. And the woman asks why she was helping him in this case. The boy says that he was not helping, but rather completing a task given to the city. Yeah, he was a traitor, but he was still her superior. And the girl says she couldn't believe he knew so much about Yukai's dirty deeds. But he questions why he didn't join the special forces to deal with Yukai together because she was Zhang Yuan from the 8th line of defense and intelligence section 2. Ziying just stares at the woman's hand, but then he says he refuses the offer. Yuan asks if he would choose to become part of the problem. Ziying denies this, however, saying that he needed to deal with Yukai, but not now and not with her, because she didn't consider the consequences of dealing with Lin Yukai. The surprised girl asks what he meant by that. The boy says that if she was thinking about killing Lin Yukai, she had 2 options: take his life or report it internally. If he loses his life, and there is more than one person in the group, he wanted to know how she would silence everyone involved. He questions what she would do if the plan fails. In the case of reporting internally, investigations will do so, and humanity will face a new defeat, as rumors of internal struggles would cause discord at levels. And this would bring an inevitable reaction that would bring chaos, with residents fleeing the country. Zhang Yuan feels pressured and asks what she should do. But Ziying just tells him he would take care of it. She asks how he would do that, because Ziying is just a deserter and even she couldn't deal with them. Hitting her finger on the boy's chest, Ziying releases her Asura energy and asks if they haven't finished competing, since a week ago there was no chance. But now, what were her chances of defeating him? Zhang Yuan notes that his reaction was out of the ordinary, and just a week ago, remembering him being weaker and wondering if his ability was to and he should assign the next one to Yes City. Xiaoliu comments to Wang that the difficulty was increasing for level 5 beasts, while Ziying follows the officer in silence. Then she turns to Ziying and asks what he would do with the beasts this time. But the boy tells her that he would take care of the mission. The officer laughs and says that Chief Nan was really advanced, while reflecting that he was competent than the dead weight that was the messenger, as he did not take bribes and made supplement groups behave. For with that war going badly, the military orders for supplements doubled, and it was a God-given opportunity for him. He touches Ziying on the shoulder and tells him to work hard, because if he needs something, he should just ask, because if he does well, he would receive medals in person. Ziying points her finger forward and tells Liu and Wang to go with everyone to the station to work. The groups gather to avoid the 5th-level beasts to the 1st and 2nd floor of the testing tower. So the officer says that the working atmosphere was good, and he wouldn't bother him anymore. Yukai leaves the place, and Ziying thinks that all the things were accumulated. He activates his Asura energy and says that he would improve his talents with Yukai's effort, using the evil alloy blade to attack the monsters and activating the ability to bother the 5th-level beasts. He draws his sword quickly, slashing everyone in your path and gaining plus 1.5 from each monster defeated. Ziying cuts everyone while jumping in the air, reaching 24 points out of 7,200 to improve the skill. On March 20th, in the 8th line of defense of Eagleland, a brutal battle lasted 4 hours, where 800,000 soldiers fell and 50,000 espers perished. Being a collapse, Ziying appears using the evil alloy blade and the Asura berserker to cut the beast. On March 22nd, Northern Glacier's 8th line of defense fell with 600,000 soldiers losing their lives, but Nan was also there to cut down the beasts that invaded her world. During March 24th, the 8th defense of Southern Glacier fell to the Metal Assassin race in just 1 hour, and one soldier stands in front of the beast, the boy appears again, cutting the monster in half with his Asura skill. 2 days later, the 8th defense of France in Kawasaki collapsed in just half an hour. One of the fallen soldiers asked to annihilate the 10,000 races, but Ziying appears saying that it was enough. Releasing your energy like an explosion and creating a tree while shouting to release all of his Asura power. Using this talent's highest level ability, a black aura surrounds the boy. That was the way of hell on earth, which scares the mutant beasts in the place. Ziying says that in that case, he would test this power on the beasts, raising his sword towards them and then lowering it, creating a slashing blast that shatters everything in its path. The boy wonders if that was all the power, as it was exponentially greater than the previous level. He turns off the Asura ability, becoming dirty with blood and dark energy. He says that the stones he got from those days could be used to tame the beasts now, and Lin Yukai would be rich, but without life to spend the money. The supplement, the boy continues his sentence, and she would like him to go to the northern desert at night and bring several iron wolves to quickly finish off the beasts. Lin Yukai praises Boss Nan for having a lot of stamina and courage, something he admired. Ziying bows to Yukai and says he would leave, but the officer tells him not to worry, embarrassed by the gesture, while thinking that he was a little rabbit and if he tried any tricks, he would meet his end. While Ziying thinks he was just a parasite in the war. On a full moon night in the northern desert, Ziying prepares for combat and says that he remembers well when the espers awaken. The 10 races attack quickly. He needed to be more discreet and called his wolves closer, ordering them to bring reinforcements as they began to howl. An entire pack of wolves sneaks into the mountain to see their king Ziying had reached Beast Tamer level 7 and says that the leveling requirements were rising exponentially. At the same time, 3 trucks approach the snowy mountains from the north. A soldier tells Lin Yukai that he had detected 1,000 mutant wolves ahead and was at the edge of the space portal. Yukai holds his maid and orders them to carry them to the nano cages and finish them to quickly take them home. However, a noise is heard outside the car. The officer turns around asking what that sound was. The soldier has no response and puts his head out of the glass. Noticing that it was an entire pack of iron wolves ambushing the 3 trucks, Lin Yukai asks how this was happening if it has never happened before, and they should teleport him to a safe place quickly. The soldier says that the teleportation only worked within a kilometer, and the beasts were at least 10 away, so the only option was to drive forward. He accelerates the engine and tries to escape the beasts by driving without looking at what was behind him. Ziying, who was watching from afar, said it was perfect weather because it was a full moon night. So he jumps from his point, going to the front of the truck and saying that he would tame some wolves and exterminate pests one by one. Ziying touches the ground and activates her beast taming talent, trespassing on all the wolves that try to attack the truck. To tame them, the 1,000 wolves are quickly tamed, and the officer exclaims that there was a beast tamer there, shouting that this was incredible. But his soldier says that he has never heard of such a powerful tamer emerging in Ye City. Yukai says that it could be as Ziying begins to command his 100,000 giant iron wolves. Ordering them, they attacked all the trucks and didn't let anyone out alive. The wolves advance towards the truck, and the soldier says that the tamer must have failed because the beasts were ambushing them again. Lin Yukai shouts to suppress the beasts with firepower quickly, and your soldiers put their faces through the windows, shooting towards the wolves. The wolves shatter the windows to bite the soldiers and headbutt the truck to immobilize them. So the soldier releases his dark energy and says it was dangerous there. Then Lin Yukai yells at him to hurry up and teleport to safety. However, one of the wolves throws the truck away. The soldier protects himself with his dark energy, creating a barrier between himself and his lord. Enraged, the wolves advance to bite the barrier. But the soldier creates a skill and says it would show what it's like to be a level 5 Esper, thus using his nano cage to teleport, releasing an immense darkness towards the wolves. Lin Yukai touches the soldier's back and tells him to hurry as the wolves were coming again. Then the soldier tells them that their nano cage was limited and they can't go like that. Trying to teleport to the walls of the ancient city, its energy releases around the entire place, but a presence appears behind the two and says he was waiting for them as they endure more than expected. The soldier turns and asks who he was, But they quickly realize that that man was Nan Ziying Lin Yukai, asks if he was the beast tamer and was trying to take his life. However, Ziying says he totally got it right. In desperation, the officer screams that if he touches him, he would ensure that his family meets a terrible end. But before he can do anything, the boy grabs his neck and tells him that he believed in him, but he was going to do something before he had the chance. And Lin Yukai tries to call Fang Meng. Fang Meng tells his lord not to worry, as he would teleport him now, releasing his nano-energy, but Ziying activates the Asura Dragon Slayer aura, which condenses energy into a dragon's killing intent, thus repelling Fang Meng's nano-energy and breaking the soldier's hand, who shouts that he can't use teleportation, and Ziying was a high-level esper too. He groans that it wasn't that, as his hand is distorted, but Ziying finishes him off with a punch. Lin Yukai asks to be spared when he sees his subordinate's body on the ground, but Ziying apologizes, throwing him off the cliff. As his last words, the officer shouts that he was a deserter and could not, being attacked by wolves in his last moments, thus finding its end being devoured. Ziying covers her face with a mask and says goodbye to Lin Yukai. At the same time, at the Esper Research Agency, a girl was taking a shower and says she felt a powerful Esper aura coming from Yes City, and it felt like the same feeling as a few days ago, where a supreme Esper emerged, which she senses thanks to her perception ability. This girl was Su Leng, who stands up and says she would report this to the agency immediately. Ziying meets with the wolves and says that since she took care of everything, they could go back to their place. But the wolves were extremely docile with him and were licking their owner, who asked them to stop. The wolves continue, but the boy orders them to sit down and behave. Ziying sighs deeply and says that she couldn't do anything about them, but he strokes a wolf's head, saying he did well this time. That was the wolf's reward, a pat on the head, and he tells them to go back and not run one at a time. The wolves form a line while Ziying jumps into a tank, saying he has a new task for them. Well, they should go to the northern desert and hunt for some source stones for him. At full moon, wolves howl for their leader. At the same time, in the slaughterhouse of Ye City, Zhang Yuan says that Lin Yukai's team was found near a nest of northern beasts, and the entire group had met its end, and questions what Ziying was doing. The boy just says that he asked Lin Yukai for some mutant wolves. The girl questions if he could control beasts too, but Ziying tells her to keep quiet because some secrets cannot be revealed. The girl quickly notices what he wanted to say, and he changes the subject, saying that they found evidence about Lin Yukai this morning and everything would be taken care of soon. While the boy gets up and says that this was good, house was genius, as it was much easier to get origin stones from mutant animals now. At the same time, he looks at his hand and says that with the giant iron wolf's eye capture, he would organize 1,000,000 beasts soon. 2 days later, he had reached the mark of 1.9 million beast-taming resource stones, and he hits the ground, saying that the fate of the world would rest on his shoulders, as he, Nan Ziying, called everyone to hold the north and defend the Blue Star. The boy had reached level 8 beast tamer, with 500,000 level 5 wolves tamed, and being able to tame beings up to level 7, calling all his animals. On the plains of White Bones, the boy faces more beasts. He extends his hand and says that they were flaming iron yaks, level 6. Releasing your energy to tame them, the yaks stamp their legs on the ground and are soon overcome by the energy of Nan Ziying, who tells them to hold the White Bone Plain and acquire source stones. In addition to not attacking human cities or humans, just waiting for more orders from him, the yaks agree and follow him. Now Ziying had 500,000 iron direwolves and 500,000 flaming iron yaks. In the Rift Canyon, the boy says that with the 1,000,000 source stones he has left, he would tame a group of level 7 rampant monkey mutants. He looks at the sky with his sword and says that as expected from level 7 beasts, his aura was on another level compared to wolves and yaks, which dominated the entire sky. The monkey jumps towards the boy. Ziying admires the animal's speed and ferocity. Then, extend your sword to tame the beast quickly before it collides with it. Slamming your hand into the rampant monkey's face, Ziying says that luckily, they were still within taming range, which advance against him quickly in an immense herd. The boy turns around, asking what that sound was. Seeing that the monkey had freed himself from his control, he is surprised to look to the side. The monkey tries to bite him, and Ziying wonders if he failed to tame them. Thus, he releases his Asura form and says that he should only defeat them to submission before taming them, using the Asura berserker to land a kick on the rampant ape, causing a huge impact of destruction in the affected area. He uses the level 8 beast tamer skill called Full Power to tame the monkey, making the entire Rift Canyon shake. But monkeys don't change, and Ziying notices the noise again, saying it must be the reason he failed last time. He dodges the beasts and says that sending them to the afterlife was a waste of energy, as he needed to defeat the boss behind them. Ziying jumps as high as possible and grabs a vine that was in the canyon, holding back with 2 other monkeys, saying they had impressive combat power, making them beat themselves up while saying they had little brains to create strategies. A monkey tries to chase you, biting the vine to break it and make Ziying fall. The boy grabs another piece and says it was a good move. He makes him beat another monkey, telling him that they were disrespecting the new master. Ziying jumps towards another cliff, ordering their leader to come out. A purple aura surrounds the place, and Ziying says it was time to change the leadership there. A hand comes out of the cave, and the boy notices the size of the creature, because his pressure was gigantic, and he would have been on his knees several seconds ago if it weren't for his Asura skill. That was a king monkey of at least level 9 or maybe higher, which tries to hold the boy at an incredible speed, which Ziying notices when he avoids the grab. The monkey tries to bite him, and the boy wonders if he wanted to eat him whole. However, he releases his Asura aura on the sword and says that it was not an easy meal, using the Asura Fury Blade to hit the Monkey King's hand. However, the monkey avoids the boy's aura, hitting the boy on the cliff floor and throwing him towards the ground, falling close to him. Then Ziying coughs on the ground. As the Monkey King approaches, he says he wasn't a burden and should show who was the boss there, releasing his hell mode from the earth and creating a gigantic evil aura. The boy takes off his coat and Chen Care begins to recite a poem to activate her Esper perception ability, and then activate it. Ziying uses hell on earth to advance towards the primate, aiming to cut him with his black sword. It jumps onto the primate's head while knocking it down, with his face completely distorted, as if he were really Asura. Chen Care falls to the ground. Su Leng tells her to wake up and asks what she saw, but Care cries, traumatized, saying it was scary because it was an Asura demon. Ziying points his sword at the monkey and asks if he had fun. The monkey was completely defeated with a bloody mouth, so the boy tells him that if he didn't have fun, he should get up and fight, but he wouldn't promise that it was easy. The monkey tries to get up bleeding once again. Ziying wonders if he would really fight again, as it would be a shame to lose his life like that, and asks if he would like to join the ranks, as he would deal with the 10,000 races together, surprising the monkey. The giant ape stares at Ziying, who stays silent with his Asura mode. Then he extends his hand to the boy, stopping in front of him. Ziying touches his fist and says, "The monkey was a good boy." This disables Asura mode in front of him. Then he tells everyone to hear his order from the million unrestrained monkeys, for from that day on, they would obey their king's command and hold the cleft canyon to obtain source stones, without harming humans or attacking cities. In addition to following your orders, the night passes in the gorge. Ziying had 1,000 level 7 rampant apes, and now commanded in the Rift Canyon as well. At the same time, in the Super Skills Agency, Su Leng says she felt a strong presence, and Kair responds that her ability lasts for 3 seconds every 24 hours. The blonde says she didn't know what it meant, but was imagining it, and asks what she would think if the 2 energies were from the same person. Kair wonders if this was possible, because they have been monitoring the Eastern Espers for years, and the top 10 have some empty spaces and have never appeared publicly. But yesterday's Asura, he secured at least 10th place, and Su Leng says he was thinking a lot and should announce the ranks. So the ranks from 1 to 9 remain to be announced. Number 10 was the mysterious Asura man, 11 was Lan Binging, and 12, Chu Tian of Space Power. The next day, the news is published, and people are excited about the ranks being revealed and about Asuras being life-taking machines. At the slaughterhouse, Xiao Liu tells Boss Nan to clean his face first because his phone was notifying non-stop, and Ziying agrees with her. Taking the cloth, so a news story says that the country Mi, Mao, and the 8th Defense fell, and to protect their home, the Eastern Alliance activated the call of police veterans for the fifth line of defense. He apologizes to the reporter because his wife, son, and daughter were coming home, and he was supposed to cook. So at that moment for questions, reporter Fang Shan tells Xiong Shan that she heard about him signing the veteran call and asks him what he thought this time. Xiong Shan says that it was his obligation and he had no questions about it. Fang Shan continues to ask what he thought about his son, Ziying, renouncing the enlistment. The man is speechless, but your wife comes home with your daughter and says that she was the neighbor at the entrance and met Xiao Ying and Shan. Being surprised to see that she was in an interview, Xiong tells his wife to sit down as he would join everyone after answering a few questions, and she agrees. The man says that, as the reporter could see, that was his family, and they were rarely together. His wife, Chen Xuemei, was a factory volunteer. Daughter Nan Zishan was an expert doctor, and his son didn't go to the borders, but works hard at the slaughterhouse to help the borders with supplements. So in his eyes, he was a good boy, because as long as he doesn't go against ethics, he would accept any choice. Ziying thinks he was a foolish old man, but the reporter asks if Ziying had anything to say about the 8th Defense falling and several of his classmates losing their lives on the battlefield. Xiong tells her to stop forcing her son because he accepted the call and they were going to put him in the 6th line of defense, but he wanted to go to the 7th on a voluntary basis. His son wasn't in the borders, but hunting monsters was difficult and helping with supplements was crucial since they never revealed who was behind it. Zishan tells her that if it's not enough, she became a volunteer doctor in the 7th Defense. And their mother says that if there aren't enough reports yet, she would go in her son's place. Everyone is silent in the room. Fang Shan apologizes for the trouble he caused and leaves Ziying shakes her hand. But tell your father that he would go with everyone. He gets up and his mother asks where he was going so late. But the boy says he was going to the slaughterhouse. The mother wonders if it was something so important that it couldn't wait until dinner. But Xiong says it was his own responsibilities, and he has seen enough of others. Ziying stares at the door without saying anything. In the primeval submerged forest, Ziying runs, saying that she still has some time tonight. So it was time to tame war elephants. He stops his run in the middle of the forest and tells them to get out because he knew where everyone was. So a gigantic elephant advances towards him. Ripping a tree trunk with the trunk, Ziying just cuts with his sword. Breaking the elephant's trunk in half, he quickly jumps off the ground, going to the elephant's head and telling him he had a little scheme where there was no time for games, using your elephant taming talent. The elephant's eyes turn red thanks to the boy's power. He tells the elephant to go and warn the others that anyone who disobeys his orders would be immediately executed. The elephant starts to move in the forest, heading towards your group quickly and spreading the words transmitted by Ziying. The boy approaches while emanating his soul and speaking for the elephants to hear. He extends his hand and says that they should guard the primeval submerged forest and mine source stones without disobeying his orders. The boy manages to tame more than 3 million beasts now and acquires as his territory the primeval submerged forest with 1 million war elephants. Ziying says that he finally unlocked the formation tree, which allowed him to create amplification, bloodlust, and sword chi. He turns his back on the elephants and says he needed to increase his level, so he would go to the slaughterhouse to get some source stones. In the slaughterhouse, the boy defeats all the beasts, and now he had 100,000 source stones, where he needed 10,000 for the formation. He says that it was enough to level up, and he should see what the sword QI formation did. Other beasts emerge from the slaughterhouse door. Ziying just concentrates and calls on the power of heaven and earth to summon 1,000 blades, creating a cyan formation that surrounds the slaughterhouse like a tornado. The boy calls his sword Shi Formation, and so she falls to the floor, destroying the beasts that were left in the place. He says that as a level 1 formation, it was still weak, then prepares again to improve the formation, using 2,000 swords this time. He breaks everything in half in his path and says that once he finished the training, everything would be done practically alone. In the second slaughterhouse, the boy activates the bloodlust formation next to the sword Qi, and an hour later, he had already improved his talent to level 2 and unlocked the elemental sword, flaming fire, and decimal amplification formations. However, each formation needed 20 source stones and could be infinitely accumulated. Ziying enjoys the sunrise on top of a building until I quickly noticed that it was already dawn, and it was a good time to say goodbye to everyone and move on to the borders. Xiao Liu approaches Wang and says good morning, but he soon notices the door open and asks if Boss Nan was working, but Li replies that he came after dinner. Wang complains that this was all because of the reporters trying to embarrass him, and the girls ask about it. Then the lady pulls out her cell phone and asks if they haven't seen the news, because she's been fighting nasty comments all night. In the post about Ziying's father accepting the call, she defended Ziying several times without caring about her opponent Xiao Liu, and Li complain about the comments going really far this time. But Ziying arrives and catches everyone's attention, saying they were together, and just once, he needed to deliver things with everyone present. Xiao Liu inquires about this and asks if Boss Nan would go to the front line. An old man approaches Ziying and says that his father asked him to deliver a letter. Then the boy holds it in his hand and quickly begins to read. The letter tells his son that Xiangshan and Zishan would be heading to the battlefield soon, and he knew that none of this was his son's fault. Xiangshan didn't know exactly what his son was planning, but he knew it would be something big, and he never backed down from a challenge. He tells Ziying that he couldn't fool him because he already knew that the Asura in the top 10 was him, and all this time he held on strong and shouldn't let anyone break his resolve, as well as protecting his mother, who was still in the city. At the end of the letter, it was written that everything was done with love and respect for Ziying's father, who was left without answers. Xiao Liu tries to talk to him so as not to stress, and Li tells him that he was already carrying a lot of weight from the others as they needed supplements, and without him, everyone would fall. Wang says that with her there, no one would defame him because she would easily silence everyone. Ziying thanks everyone, but says she had something she needed to tell everyone. Asking if they knew about the 5th Defense Line Reserve announcement, Xiao Liu fearfully says that she wanted to be the chief engineer there. So Ziying tells them not to worry, because he wouldn't delay the work of slaughtering beasts. In front of a divine statue, several trucks depart. Ziying was in the crowd and thinks he would take his father's words to heart. Well, he was right, and going to the battlefield now wouldn't be better than defeating some monsters. But it didn't change that he would disappoint them by leaving his mother alone. But the Xenos weren't a carbon life form and didn't need to mine source stones, so there weren't any better ones for him, and that they would only become stronger with powerful enemies and with his current power. Humanity has no chance, since in the end he didn't protect anyone. But if he wants to win, he needs to focus on the 5th line of defense, which will be where humanity will stand. Well, your father shouldn't worry, as he wouldn't abandon his promise under any circumstances. 3 days later, a man tells Boss Nan that he was actually a high-level graduate from the architecture department. That was Engineer Li, who explains about the reserve of the 5th Defense that, according to Ziying's design, would cover 20 cities, something that not even tanks could do. The boy says that all of this was thanks to the construction team and Engineer Li, because unfortunately, the electric iron wall was just a smokescreen, because true defense lives in formations, and the formations needed a lot of source stones, which Ziying went to a freezing area. He had 3,500,000 stones left, enough for several formations. The area between the 5th Defense and Ye City was uninhabited, the perfect location for his formations. So the boy begins to recite a formation. It was the Flaming Fire Formation, with 50,000 shapes that covered an entire kilometer. He begins to recite another incantation now, on top of a tree, using 50,000 elemental key sword formations, the same size as each other, and stacks with the fire formations per kilometer. Ziying continues to accumulate all of his formations using 50,000 as the standard value per kilometer, until you reached formation level 3, where you unlocked 3 new ones and needed 5 million formations to level up. He comes down from the tree and says that it was 10 kilometers long with accumulated layers of level 2 formations. This would root the low-level Xenos, but he didn't have source stones to spend on a level 3 and delay his leveling time, so he should save that. For today, he has completed the first layer of defense line for 35 kilometers of Ye City, and with 1.25 million level 2 formations accumulated. The other day, at the construction site, Engineer Li told Ziying that they had a problem. Engineer Li takes out his cell phone and uses it to check the news, where they commented that Ziying was wasting time and money The old man says that the public was against. However, the boy tells engineer Lee not to worry and continue construction as planned because he would come with a new improvement plan, reflecting that the line of defense was never a real defense. It was all for the Xenos to have a false sense of security and let their guard down when they arrived at the formation. Engineer Lee asks why a line of defense wouldn't be more practical, but the boy activates his ability quickly underground, so he should prepare for when he gets it. He tells Engineer Lee that he needed to build 2 moats, one in front and one behind downtown, and the old man questions. Ziying says that the Xenos would attack everything they see in front of them, so they will electrify the wall and turn it into water to create a high-voltage trap. Engineer Lee is impressed and says he would immediately report this to the city's news, running and counting that everyone was anxious too. While Ziying thinks that once he unlocks the elemental command rune, the defense would get better. In the Rift Canyon, through the slaughterhouse and harvesting beast stones, Ziying reached level 4. With Wan City, Shu, and Gan, he now had 45 miles fortified with 375,000 level 2 formations accumulated, and the next improvement would take a while. Even though Ziying had reached level 4 and unlocked several new formations, however, he notices a familiar aura and wonders if it was a powerful Xenos, but note that it also had a human aura, and jumps to the place saying that this was not good at all, because the Xenos were trying to take the life of someone who was their business, deep in the mountains. In the hidden Chu clan, a man approaches a tombstone, but then an explosion happens on the ground. The old patriarch of the Chu clan, Chu Changxiong, asks why Xinghe came out of seclusion 2 years early, when he could only come out after 12 years of the invasion. Xinghe tells his master that he felt a powerful aura emanating from the north of the border, and it resonated with him, and that's why he came out of seclusion. The master says that it was a region full of spiritual energy, but the boy says that that was precisely what was important, and he decided he would visit north of the border in person. Chang Xiong says he had rumors of Xeno escorts saying that in an apocalyptic era, everything was dangerous, so he uses his flying skills, saying that if he can receive a little help from an expert, his trip will be even more useful. An hour later, he notices several borders and says they were incredible, wondering if it could be the work of a single person, as he was a true hidden master. However, he notices a presence of Xeno flies towards him through the moon. That was the Iron Xeno Slayer, Unit 3578, which Xinghe dodges the blow. He avoids it by jumping away from the Xeno, but he looks back and sees another Xenos, which he notices has the aura of an elite and has barely come out of seclusion, but they were already coming after him. The other Xenos was Unit 1324, which says that a level 10 Esper prodigy has been detected and should be exterminated. So the flying Xeno tries to attack the boy, but Xinghe quickly uses his control grip to form a hand seal, manifesting a mastery of the sword above the 2 Xenos, and creating a formation of Hellfire and Azure Spirit, saying that the Xenos would face his wrath. Ziying jumps towards the fight, saying that the weather has changed and fears that the prodigies have no chance since his father is in the 7th defense. In their old timeline, the prodigies only appeared in the 12th year of the invasion, giving humanity hope by pressuring the Xenos until the 20th year. He knew that the Xenos sent their best assassins to Earth to await the prodigies, but that world needed his plans and would not let them fail before they arrived. The flying Xeno defends the Xinghe formation with its wings, while the giant only takes the blow head-on. Xinghe spits blood and says that dealing with 2 elite Xenos was too much for him. So the flying Xeno just dodges the blow, and the giant breaks the sword with his hand, causing an explosion between the 3 fighters. Xinghe moves his hands to defend himself and spits blood, asking how he who barely touched the world would already meet his end there. But he denies this until the last moment, trying to remain standing and saying that if he had to lose his life, he would take one with him. The 2 Xenos try to attack, but Xinghe is saved, while Ziying tells him to pay attention. An explosion of dust occurs, covering the place. Ziying has him sitting in a tree. Xinghe notes that that was the senior he felt earlier, while the boy just questions if he could fight. The prodigal stands up and tells him that with the senior's help he could, and Ziying orders him to focus on the Iron Executioner with long-distance support, trapping the Colossus. Thus, Xinghe retreats, saying that he understood the message, and the flying Xeno approaches. detecting Ziying as an esper of unknown level. The boy thinks that he hadn't seen the Iron Executioner for a while, but now he was just a way to use his training. So he touches the ground and uses the level 3 formation, where he creates distorted earth spikes, but it's no use. So Ziying says that a level 3 formation was nothing against his enemy. The boy then touches the ground and accumulates 50,000 formations of thorns and icy bites, creating multiple ice spikes at the location which shatter the executor, and from afar they take the form of an ice mountain. Xinghe says that those formations were stronger than the ones he saw before. Plus, his fighting style was no different from the elder clans. Wondering who Ziying was, Ice takes over the battlefield by freezing the executioner, and the prodigy notices this feat. But the Colossus keeps attacking him, while Ziying tells him to pay attention and not let his guard down. Thus, the giant attacks Xinghe with its immense tentacles, causing a huge impact on the ground in front of Ziying and forcing him to enter Asura mode, landing a punch to the Colossus's face. Xinghe sees Ziying land in Asura form and wonders if he was the top 10 ranked. The boy in Asura mode thinks that a clash he had was a good opportunity, and instead of ending it quickly, he would use it to improve the prodigy's experience. He remembers the area amplification formation and wonders if he can apply it to a person, so Xinghe apologizes for forcing him to retreat. But Ziying touches his forehead and tells him not to move, while the boy questions what that was, until he starts shaking thanks to the tenfold amplification inflicted on his body. Xinghe begins to agonize on the floor, and the boy tells him to hold on. The system warns that the human body cannot take more than that, and Ziying says that it was enough for him to defend himself. So the Colossus is ready to attack again, while he deduces that the prodigy would like training, but in his current state it was risky. But he had no choice, until a purple flash forms in the sky, and Ziying wonders what it was, noticing that it was Xinghe forming a domain with his power, manifesting a sword aura barrier. However, the executioner breaks free from the ice. Ziying faces him while the Xeno tries to attack him, but it advances towards the creature, creating a level 4 thunder barrage formation, creating a gigantic overload in the affected area thanks to the accumulation of 50,000 times. Both monsters are executed by the blows applied by their opponents. Xinghe lands next to Ziying, who exclaims that this was real combat power. The prodigy kneels down next to the boy and thanks him for saving his life and opening his eyes, while the senior just asks him to stand up. So, the boy says that a mysterious Asura esper, who created formations in secret and acted with a mask, was planning something big, but he wasn't ready yet, because everyone knew that the greatest in the world would resist the Xenos, and asks if he was intending to use the place as a battlefield. And Ziying thinks he was brilliant. Xinghe continues judging by his senior's face and asks if his surname starts with N. Ziying is surprised, and the boy says about it not being difficult to get it right, since the Asura class was about carnage in a slaughterhouse. For the formations in the 5th line of defense that he volunteered for a few days were to avoid detection. Yingyi says that everything above was due to his intuition and questions, so he should be forgiven if he was wrong, while Ziying wonders how he knew so much about everything. So the boy continues saying that he was ashamed to speak, but he had only been in seclusion for 10 years, and he watched TV and watched the internet. He pats his chest and asks permission for him to lead the Chu clan to the 7th line of defense, as it was his duty, and he also wanted time for his senior's plan. Ziying thinks he had really smart people who can be confident, and he thanks him, saying that he needed time, but the borders were dangerous and he should promise to survive, as he was useful alive. In addition to seeing some people at the border, he must protect. So Xinghe tells his senior not to worry, because he would do that. Ziying only thinks about her younger sister and father. Then he asks Xinghe to take him to his clan, because before leaving for the borders, he would give the gift of the amplification formation. The boy keeps saying that he had a younger sister and she couldn't talk, but she had good teleportation skills, and with amplification, she would be valuable by his side. The news of the day was about the Chu clan's prodigy emerging and defeating a level 10 Xeno and reaching level 9, while a mysterious formation master reached rank 8. The people of the city commented on the news, since at that time, they would reach the borders before the veterans, and it was all like a fantasy novel. At the slaughterhouse in Ye City, Xinghe presents his sister Chu Tian to leave in the hands of his senior, who thinks he wasn't joking when he spoke younger, and he wonders if he wasn't leaving him to babysit while he went to war, while the girl sits sucking a lollipop. Some people comment that the current prodigy was hanging out with the loser Nan Ziying. Even though he had talent, he hung out with people who were worthless. Then Chu Tian draws an S in the air with his finger, imbuing the air with your energy and making people disappear from their side. A civilian shouts that 2 old women fell into a sewer, while Ziying remembers the name Chu Tian, who was ranked 12th in the Esper rank. He holds the girl's hand and says it was an honor, while thinking that with her, he wouldn't need to travel and can switch between the 5th line of defense and the slaughterhouse whenever. So he no longer needed work to cover his necromancy. But summoning the tree which needed 1,000,000 dead to evolve, being the 4th skill, Zhang Yuan shouts, asking how he would withstand all the slaughterhouses of 20 cities around the 5th defense. Because he would be overwhelmed and the distance was gigantic, but Ziying tells her to relax because he worked on these details and needed authorization. The girl says it wasn't a problem because the slaughterhouses were under the cities, and the boy turns around thanking him because he had to leave since he had something to do. The girl thinks that his ability seems to have grown significantly again, and he doesn't seem to fear losing his life now, but he hasn't reached the borders yet. Ziying explains to Chu Tian that there was a massive flow of source stones into the slaughterhouses, and they needed to improve to an unprecedented height. So the little girl uses her ability to teleport them to the north, where they encounter the wolves. The boy reflects that he needs to start invoking as he had some source stones to burn, so he asks to go to Emperor Qin's mausoleum 1,000 kilometers away. The girl concentrates again and makes them disappear from the place, surprising the wolves. They appear above a cliff, and Ziying wonders if the girl missed the teleport. But note that that was the limit of the girl's distance, and even with simple amplification, the distance was only 100 kilometers. Then towards Emperor Qin's mausoleum, Ziying tells Chu Tian to find a safe place, but the girl was already gone. So he says she was smarter than her brother. Without interruption, Ziying activates his 4th necromancy tree, releasing its reddish energy as it screams for the spirit of the great Qin dynasty to wake up. A greenish energy takes over the necromancy area, surprising Ziying with what was in front of him, for the prodigal Qin appears and asks who dared disturb his nap. Ziying draws his sword and says that even after 1,000 years, his presence was the aura of a true emperor, and tries to reason with the king. He asks His Majesty to allow him to use his army to help the world in danger, but Qin calls him an insolent child. Drawing his sword while asking if the boy believed his soldiers were under his command, the emperor makes a cut with his sword. So if the boy wanted the army, he would have to prove that he is worthy. Ziying dodges the cut and apologizes for his intrusion, activating Asura mode. Qin comes forward again, saying that he unified the 6 kingdoms, so cheap tricks would not impress him, as he must have had the audacity to want the dragon throne. So both powers collide. Ziying tells him not to judge a book by its cover and prove it in a real fight, while the emperor calls him arrogant. The boy uses the Asura dragon slayer to attack the emperor, but Qin avoids the blow and asks how bold he was to call himself a dragon slayer, as he would show his true colors by invoking the supreme emperor's will. A dragon forms in the emperor's attack, aiming to attack Ziying. The boy tries to use his Asura ability again with the power of the animals he had tamed, but he can't even hurt the dragon. Thus he is pressured to enter maximum Asura form, while saying that it was expected of an emperor-level spirit. A skeleton forms around Ziying as he uses hell on earth, which collides with the dragon. Qin complains that it was mere theater and nothing more than that, but Ziying wanted to know if that was really it, because the dragon slowly begins to be taken over by the reddish energy of Asura. The emperor asks how this was possible, but Ziying approaches to cut him off while apologizing to His Majesty, thus cutting Emperor Yingzheng in half. Qin says that was enough because in another hit, he would turn the entire mausoleum into rubble. Ziying guards his sword, and the emperor admits the boy's victory, but he was dormant for several before. So before the boy leads his army, he should tell his entire story to the emperor. Qin says he cannot abandon his descendants and gives Ziying a tiger statue, explaining that this will make it easier to summon his warriors, and the boy thanks him. This is how he calls the Qin warriors to fulfill his order, as the enemies have already reached the barriers and he must protect his homeland. Necromancy rises to level 3 with Qin's 10 million soldiers. who had the abilities of loyalty and destruction, Ziying had finally unlocked the forbidden elemental spell skill tree, which had given him various skills that cost 10,000 source stones and could be accumulated infinitely. But a noise is heard from afar, and the boy realizes that it was not good because the Xeno assassins noticed his presence and were attacking from 2 directions. Qin calls his soldiers Wang Jian and Meng Jian, who appear, and the emperor orders them to take care of the invaders. Ziying tells his majesty to lead the east as he would deal with whoever was there. Using Chu Tian's teleportation, 20 kilometers away from the mausoleum, a boy fights with several assassins and says he just went to find out what the energy he felt was. That was Su Changhe, the prodigy of the Su clan, who says it had been a bad time for a fight. He uses the collision of 100 ghosts to control the monsters with a thick line, ordering the monsters to lose their lives. Xenos are affected by the ability, but the boy runs away saying it wasn't enough and they better get into it too. Tying the monster's arm, Su Changhe takes cover behind the monster and tells the Xenos not to worry because that was his partner and they wouldn't get hurt. The Xeno attacks its ally without mercy, while cursing them for not hesitating even with their allies. Changhe's puppet returned the blow, while the boy encourages him by telling him to fight for him. Thus, there is a tie in skills between the 2 Xenos. Changhe looks back, seeing a sneak attack from a Xeno, and he ducks down to prevent the blow from reaching him easily. The Xeno assassin tries to attack him from above, breaking Changhe's puppet with just 1 blow. His blade approaches the boy, and he says that he would be taking everything from him because the Xeno wouldn't come out alive either. But the sword is avoided by another thin blade. Su Changhe wonders what that was as he notices the greenish aura. Qin introduces himself and tells the boy not to be afraid because he came to provide assistance, surprising Changhe because the first emperor of China was there. The emperor cuts with his sword and says he didn't have time to spare, and the boy thanks his majesty. Ying Zheng charges at the Xenos, asking how they dared to hurt his descendants, and his soldiers should show no mercy, so the Jian twins agree with their king, attacking the remaining Xenos from the battle. At the same time, a noise is heard from afar. 20 kilometers west of the emperor's mausoleum, 2 brothers from the Qin clan protect themselves from the Xenos attack. These were Qin Sui, and Qin Ying Ying asks Sui to listen to him and just run, touching the ground and activating your plant summon to hurt the monsters, creating a wooden behemoth to restrain them. He shouts that now he had a chance for his sister to run, but Xenos executioners cut the wood. Ying tries to restrain them with vines, but blood flies in your face because the executioner injured Sui, who got in the way of the blow. The boy in tears screams, asking how the executioner dared to touch his sister, thus launching a blow that throws the attacker far away. Sui warns his brother that there were 2 colossi behind them, and he should be careful. When the colossi's blow is about to arrive, he is pierced by a reddish sword. Ziying orders Chu Tian to teleport all these Xenos 1 kilometer to the south, then order the 2 brothers not to move or speak during the teleportation. So he raises his hand against the 2, saying that he would amplify them quickly. Ying and Sui scream in pain as the formation hits their brains, but Ziying warns that once the amplification is complete, they could deal with half of them, and the other half would be for testing their forbidden spells. He uses the thunder spell, launching a slash towards the sky as he extends his hand, hitting a cloud and using overhead 100-fold, thus shooting at the beasts and reaching spellcaster level 2, doubling the goal. Ying tells his benefactor that he would only take care of half, and Sui asks to leave the rest with them. Ziying apologizes about this as he was overreacting. While putting on his mask, he thinks that he didn't expect the spells to be so powerful. The prodigy of the Sui clan tells them to pay attention as they still have Xenos left. Then both he and his sister attack the Xenos with their plant manipulation spells. Sui manages to pierce the Colossus with his vines, and Ying does the same to the executioner. Ziying says that he saw enough combat power, and the last coward was on his own, thus closing your hand while using the Forbidden Earth Element spell, which creates a gigantic arm of earth overloaded by 50 times. He orders his blow to bury his opponent, thus creating a large impact of dust at the fight site. And there's only him left standing on the battlefield. Chu Tian thinks he was shooting a mosquito with a gun when using this power, and even the brothers are impressed by Ziying's display of power. Saying the heavens overheated and the earth shook, Ziying turns around and asks what they were going to do. So Sui and Ying kneel down and say that their savior should accept their deepest gratitude for their help. The boy wonders if all the ancient clans knelt like this. But the twins say that their lives belong to their benefactor, and any orders would be obeyed. Might Ziying question whether they knew his identity. Ying and Sui deny it, saying they should have asked his name first. However, the boy says that it was okay that they didn't know and thinks that most geniuses weren't as intelligent as Shinge, and their amplification doesn't improve a person's chi. Chin appears telling Changhe that he was his friend, regardless of the age difference. The heir of the Su clan asks if the masked boy was the one he spoke of, and Qin Shi Huang agrees with the boy. Changhe thanks him for being saved and says that normally he would kneel, but he doesn't like that, so he would be in his debt. Ziying says he has 2 requests, where they should let him go to their clans and prepare an amplification boost. Su questions what amplification was and why it seemed scary, but the senior just touches his forehead, placing the formation on the genius. He starts screaming in pain because of the arrangement. Ying asks what her benefactor wanted because he would do anything, and Ziying wonders if he should ask them to go to the front lines because he was currently strategizing from behind. Therefore, sending them to fight would be moral cohesion. Kibalam. He asks them to take care of their own, and Changhe says that the guy was terrible wearing that mask, and asks if it was difficult to say what he had in mind, for he called upon the army to protect his homeland. But he tells them nothing, wondering if Ziying would act like a lone wolf in the shadows. Sui asks how bold he was for talking to his benefactor like that, but Ziying tells him he was right, for he needed them to take their clans and go to the 7th defense to buy him time, and those who survive can find him in the 5th line of defense. And when that happens, he would show his true face, surprising the prodigies who accept the proposal. Ziying gives the tiger statue to Changhe and says that he was entrusting Qin's 10 million soldiers. Then the boy bows to the geniuses and says he would leave them with everything, while Qin reflects that the emperor's blood flows in him and the spirits would never be quenched. News reports that prodigies from the Su and Qin clans lead in the 7th defense, while those from the Lin, Zhuge, and Xiao clans were defeated by the Xenos. Xiao Liu wonders what was going on, that they were trying to catch them one by one, and Wang complains about the future of the children who were supposed to be the strongest. Ziying reflects that the prodigies were emerging earlier than in his previous life, and this was not sustainable, as even if he rushed to save, he could not guarantee. Then he turns around and walks away, saying it was like filling the ocean with a bucket. But he needed to get to the root of the problem or nothing would change, so he asked Chu Tian to lead him to the northern desert to wake up the 4 great prodigies. The portal opens, and Ziying asks her to watch as he captures them one by one. Chu Tian takes the boy to Emperor Han's tomb, and he calls for the ancient emperor to awaken, calling various figure stories and saying that whoever offends the state of Han would meet his wrath, using necromancy to summon the 20 million soldiers of the Han dynasty to listen to his commands and march northward. A reddish light emanates from the tomb, and the boy says that it was time for the 5 great prodigies to make their entrance. Eating like this with Asura, using his maximum level in internal mode to be able to attract attention. At the Super Skills Agency, Kair shouts that it was the mysterious Asura, and the aura was much stronger than last time, turning into a complete berserker, so they needed to report it. Ziying talks about creating front and back ranks to protect the flanks, reciting a poem to create your formation and seal that land, calling sword formation of Ki, Hell, distorted earth thorn and ice bite, accumulated 1,000,000 times in 100 miles of formation. Su Leng tells her friend to wait, because there is another energy emerging from a magical formation in the same place, and Kair asks if it was the formation master. Ziying continues to summon the spirits of the great Han with her necromancy, ordering them to destroy the invaders for the glory of the state of Han. Calling Wei Qing, Huo Kubing, and Emperor Wu shouts for his army to attack, surprising Su Leng, who almost falls to the ground, and Kair asks what happened, because she had never felt such a powerful aura coming from a living dead person, and it was certainly a spirit, while Su Leng says that, in addition to the 2 top 10, there was still a necromancer. And this energy signature was something beyond what she had ever seen, leaving level 10. So if you could classify it, you could only say that it was a divine level. The mention of the divine level impresses Care, who asks if there were 3 divine level espers in the north at the moment, so they should report. Now Ziying uses her forbidden light spell increased by 100 times, creating an immense light that seemed to have turned night into day. People say it was only 10 at night and wonder if it was a supernatural phenomenon. Then the news talks about 4 god-level prodigies in the north and comments that this was the pinnacle, as even the inland army got involved inland's first line of defense advances with helicopters towards the northern desert. But even at maximum speed, it would take an hour. Ziying continues to summon all of his beasts, from the 500,000 iron wolves and flaming iron yaks to the millions of monkeys and elephants. The animals appear following their tamer's command, roaring upwards in his honor, and the news warns that there was a beast tamer involved, being the 5th divine level. At the pharmaceutical factory, Chen Lianyi talks to Xiaonan about the wolves they had seen in the northern desert, and Xiaonan wonders if it was the same master as before. At the resource center, Zhang Yuan notices the Asura and animal taming powers and wonders if Nan Ziying could be the one causing all this commotion. The light reached as far as the Eastern Ocean, in the state of the Lan clan, where the prodigy of the Lan clan, Chang Kong, who was on top of an animal, says that he would meet such a beast tamer inland in the state of the Zhuge clan. Zhuge Yuan flies on a rock saying that this forbidden elemental magic would be a golden opportunity for his clan. Thus, the prodigies of all ancient clans advance towards the northern desert, from the Xuanyuan, Huang, Yu, and Shu clan. Ziying says that this kind of commotion was something that the invaders must have already noticed and would bring about many ambitious prodigies, being the perfect chance to amplify them. His face becomes dark, and he says that everything was in its place, but he looks ahead and says that now all he can do is wait for the Xeno assassins. In inland, the Huang clan's prodigy, Huang Xian, was being attacked by Xenos and wonders if he would lose his life there. He then shouts for them to come to him because he wasn't afraid, but the Xenos stop attacking, leaving the place and leaving the prodigy behind, who wonders what was happening. Thus all Xenos, of various types, from flying, colossi, and reptiles, advance to the northern desert, forming an army against Ziying. The boy says that they have finally arrived and calls his beasts tamed, then summoning his army of ghosts and saying that the slaughter would begin. He uses his boreal slaughter skill and cuts a colossus with his sword quickly. Then he finds himself surrounded by execution, Xenos, but Ziying uses his hell on earth to quickly defeat. The boy turns back, seeing his wolves biting Xenos, the yaks using their heads to defeat them, and the Monkey King beating everyone. Even Emperor Wu's spirit was facing the Xenos and splitting them in half with his blows. Ziying starts floating with a spell and says that, as expected of beasts and spirits, they were even more formidable with her amplification spell. But even with all their resources, they are all still surpassed by adaptation Xenos, and the same was true for the spirits, who are cut in half by the adapted Xeno. Therefore, if the battle continues, he would suffer unnecessary defeats. Ziying calls the beasts and spirits and tells them that he would draw fire in the center and they should circle the enemies to form a perimeter and push them from all sides. Beasts should focus on metal enforcers and trolls, while the spirits must face the poisonous monkeys and paralyzing behemoths. In the midst of several colossi, Ziying says that the location was Xeno territory and begins to overlay the formation, slamming the ground with your aura-imbued palm and creating an explosion that pushes all Xenos away. The explosion destroyed everything in its path on the battlefield. Then Ziying tells Chu Tian that he would need her help in the next part, because if any Xenos breaks the formation and goes to the city walls, it should teleport him. However, he notices Chu Tian's teleportation aura surrounding him, and the girl smiles at her friend, sending him head-on into a giant Xenos. Ziying is surprised, and the Xenos has the same reaction. He hits the monster and uses his Forbidden Wind Element spell, increasing the power by 50 times and throwing it away. The Xenos falls to the ground, surrounded by Ziying's beasts. So the beasts bite him and finish off the monster. Chu Tian laughs and says that a troll fell, and the boy congratulates her on a job well done, but says that next time she could aim higher. So it is bypassed again by space energy. Ending up in the middle of several trolls, Ziying complains that maybe he will get used to it over time. He charges at the troll using his forbidden electricity spell charged 50 times to defeat them. So he says that the prodigies are already close to the military. So he should finish this now, stomping the earth and invoking his forbidden Crescent Earth Hunter's spell, overloading 50 times and ordering enemies to be drawn, making the earth move as if it were an earthquake. Spectators watch the fight from afar and wonder who was doing it. Zhuge Yuan wanted to know who could control the earth to such an extraordinary level. But you are surprised when you look down because a small red explosion was forming. So Ziying shoots the amplification at each of the prodigies who watch the fight from afar, activating tenfold improvement and making the prodigies writhe in pain thanks to mental pain. The amplification ends, and the Zhuge clan prodigy asks Ziying's name as he would be eternally grateful. The boy, in his Asura form, says that he left a message for him and the military in the desert north of Gobi, and if he wants to pay it back, he should just obey. So he disappears, and Zhuge Yuan thinks he disappeared after giving him such a gift and still hasn't revealed his identity. He then creates a stone with his ability and says he would honor his request by going to the northern desert to see his message. Finally, the military begins to surround the battlefield with their helicopters. The commander, Xu Chuyang, arrives and questions whether that was the right place, looking for the prodigy, while his soldier confirms, but also does not understand the situation. However, the ground begins to shake, raising rocks and surprising Xu Chuyang and his soldier. Zhuge Yuan goes down to find the commander and says that he knew, because that was the formation that the prodigy buried them in. Xu Chuyang questions where the mystical prodigies were, but the boy says that he just created the formation and was wearing a mask. The Zhuge family's prodigy explains that he disappeared after improving his skills, and the other prodigies agree with the experience. Lan Changkong presents a stone structure and says that this was the message left by the prodigies. Then, everyone turned to find out what it said. The commander orders them to take a photo and summon all high-level military and clan elder leaders to an emergency meeting. From afar, Ziying reflects that it is not yet time to reveal himself. It was the only way to get military help, and he eliminated most of the aliens. But if it turned out that the 5 prodigies were the same person, the world would go into chaos. After all, human nature was difficult to understand, and in times of war, anyone can be your enemy. This is what happened in your past life and accelerated the war. He tells Chu Tian to go back to the slaughterhouse. Then space energy starts to surround them, and the boy continues thinking that everyone considered him a coward, so it would be difficult for them to discover that he was a genius. A new news alert says that the prodigies of Zhuge and Zhuan Yuan clan lead their clans to the 7th line of defense, while Chang Kong retreated his troops. In the military conference hall of the 5th line of defense, Xu Chuyang comments that this was the message from the divine-level prodigies who ordered to go to the 7th defense. He asks what the military's thoughts were on this, since they came to discuss this matter. The leader of the Xuanyuan clan, Rulong, offers to interpret it as a grand strategy, and that it was the plan to make the 5th line of defense the last attack, because the source of the volcano refers to the artificial volcano that burned everything in its path. The water of the heavens referred to the man-made canal that was about connecting the sea with the northeast iron forest, meant creating an impenetrable jungle of metal, creating colossal metallic trees. And finally, stones burned by the sky were referring to the source stones, which should be stored. General Fang Lin of the 2nd line of defense says that judging from everything, this message was made by the prodigy Asura, as believing his words was unwise. Li Fei from the 3rd defense agrees with him and says he didn't know the 5 geniuses, so betting the nation's survival on an encrypted message was madness. However, a man at the corner of the table interrupts, asking for a moment. Zhu Jie Chengming says that if the message was made by the Asura, the other prodigies were present, and otherwise, the formation's prodigy would have informed the clans, because considering his demands was the point of powerful formations along with spells that needed everything. Rulong agrees and says that the prodigies did not reveal themselves because his brother Zhuge spoke well. And in a time like this, all that was left was to bet, as he felt it would be the best decision ever made in the East. Xu Chuyang comenta que os 5 prodígios lidaram com milhares de assassinos alienígenas de nível 10 em menos de 1 hora, e isso era improvável. But they were his body and blood, and destiny was just one. So his decision was to help the 5 prodigies. News travels around the city telling about the creations of the projects mentioned in the stone carved by the prodigy, and people wonder what they were doing. Ziying in the 5th defense says that making a change of decisions was good for a great nation, and he made the right bet, for they put their faith in him, and he would not let them down. Engineer Lee approaches and tells Boss Nan that these projects were similar to what they were already doing. However, the members of the 5th line shout that there was a red whirlpool in the sky, which was coming from the 7th defense, surprising Ziying. So he looks at the sky in a cold sweat because of fear, remembering that this event should only happen in 2 years because it was the dimensional portal of the Xenos. So he calls out to his father, his sister, and Xinghe Xing teleports together with Chu Tian and says that with the portal open, he should go to the 7th line of defense where a war would take place, and the borders were already overloaded, so they should just reinforce. He touches the ground, summoning the 20 million warriors of the Han Dynasty to come to the 7th defense, thus creating the spirits while also calling for his battalion of beasts. An explosion occurs in the area, and the boy asks Chu Tian to teleport him and the beasts to the borders. Chu Tian begins to concentrate on his teleportation magic, even breaking the lollipop in his mouth, but the little girl spits blood afterwards. Ziying catches her before falling, screaming her name, and she says that they were 1,000 kilometers from the 7th defense, and she shouldn't force herself if she can't take it. Chu Tian, however, starts to laugh, surrounding the two in his spatial aura. Ziying is impressed by the action, because the girl gets up and says she could handle this.